No, I have Rhonda. Do you want to do it? Just yes. Good afternoon to the Cary Rotary Club. It's so great to see familiar and new faces here today at the warmest and friendliest Rotary Club in District 77. Great to have you with us here today. I wonder, can I ask Ron Stanley to join us, lead us in a prayer and pledge.
Please bow with me. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this gorgeous day. We just thank you for everything the Rotary does each and every day for locally and internationally. We're so thankful for the men and women and their services who protect us every day. We just ask you to be with us today, watch over us, guide, protect us, keep our men and women safe in the military. Bless us food, nourish our bodies. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Amen. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ron. And like you, Bruce, I look forward to the time we're going to sing. It's got to be done. Paul Kevin. Good afternoon, sir. Can I ask you to help us introduce guests and visiting Rotarians today?
Good afternoon, friends of Bob.
That's great news.
And that is awesome news. I would ask that Mr. David Faulkner introduce his guest.
My name is Kim Riley, realtor, and a very good artist. So Kim, welcome.
Welcome, Kim.
Live today, and Straw had joined us about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and just want to welcome Ted as well.
Welcome, Ted. Thanks for joining us remotely.
And also,
I'm delighted today to have my guests and also Betty Shire, Tim Dusty, and Ross is our guest, the head of Glen Air, Ben Stevens. Yes, today.
Welcome, Ben. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, David and John. I was looking forward to saying hello to Blair, recognizing Blair when she was here too, John. She's having some free time over the next hour. Is that?
She gave us some things to do.
You got a honey-do list. Great. Well, please give her our best as well. In terms of our club business, Ron Stanton has an update on the chili dinner.
Thank you, President. Just a brief update, we are dragging along with the chili dinner fundraisers, the biggest fundraiser we have this year. So far, we're over $33,000. There is still time to go ahead and find a sponsor for $175 for a table sponsor, corporate sponsors. We have our event February the 1st. And so it's going to be an exciting time. I'll thank everybody for their support. So now I'm going to turn it over to Ken Tyma, who will give you an update.
Okay, Ken, hang on one second. I'll give you the heads up so that everybody can hear you. Go for Ken Tyma. Oop, got to unmute yourself though.
Now, can everyone hear me? Can you hear me, Bob? Hello?
Go, Ken.
I'm trying to go. Can you hear me? Well, I'm just going to go ahead.
Yeah, they can
I'm
hear you.
sorry, this is my fault that I can't. Keep going, Ken.
Okay. I think everybody knows we're doing something a little different with the chili dinner function this year because we couldn't get chili again. And we've added the component of a raffle. And because of doing that, in the next week or so, everyone will be receiving an envelope with tickets for the raffle that we're going to have on February 1st. We've got some great prizes. We have an iPad, we have a car detail, we have a round of golf at McGregor. We have a lot of useful gift cards. There's some really great stuff. And a lot of you are table sponsors or above, and quite a few of you are just receiving your regular member allotment of 8 tickets. In the past, club members often sold their chili tickets to recoup some of their expense. We just need to remind everybody with this raffle thing that if you give or sell your tickets to someone else, you have to track where that ticket goes, because we can only track it as far as you on the spreadsheet that we have. And we may want to award a prize to someone that you sold a ticket to or gave a ticket to. And we just rely on the members to make sure that you know where tickets go if you give them away, so that we can get prizes to the right person. And as Ron was saying, as always, we appreciate everybody's help in continuing to make, this is our club's largest fundraiser. We can't get there without you, so any help is appreciated. That's all I got.
All right, thank you, Ken. And to the entire Chili Committee for all of your tireless work. I have to say, I was a little jealous. I didn't get an envelope as I walked in the door today. So for those of you that received them, you're the object of envy. Oh, John, you're going to give me yours. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
There was one in the
All
box,
right.
Bob.
So we'll look forward to that chili dinner. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Bill Fletcher, an update on RILA.
The Rotary Youth Leadership Award. Thank you, President Bob. We have received 2 completed applications. We have a partial third application. Excuse me. We've received two completed applications that have been sent on to the district, Megan Gay and Madison East. And we have a third in process. It's interesting dealing with a high school junior and their technology versus mine. I'm not willing to take a photo. I'm not willing to take a photo of page 2 of the application without page 1 being with it. You know, so but we're working on that. And he seems to be a fine young man. He's more technology advanced than I am. So we're having that difficulty. We still have room, according to the district. There may still be room for additional applicants. If someone has come to mind that has not yet submitted an application, COVID vaccination is required. The event is on the first weekend of Wake County spring break. So there's some mental conflicts for students to say, do I really want to go do something and learn this weekend, or want to take the weekend off? But if you know anyone, high school juniors, no seniors, Bruce, high school juniors, let us know. We may still be able to get them in. We have budgeted 4 RILA students from our club for this year. So we have the funds in our budget. We won't spend them unless we have the students. So get in touch with me, Bill Fletcher at billfletcher.com. That's easy to remember. And thank you very much. I'm not sure. I can't. What? April 8th? Yeah, it's in Cale. I think it's yeah, it's Southern Transfer County.
It's in one of the hill towns here in North Carolina. Yeah, exactly. Jim, I wanted to quickly call on Jim Lovejoy to share a new purchase of the club for the benefit of Memory Cafe.
Yes, some of you'll recall John Miller was instrumental in getting our 50th anniversary. We put the monument up at the Cary Chamber of Commerce, and we sold bricks. And people that wanted to help memorialize this could buy a brick with their name or whatever they wanted on it. I think 3 lines. The money from that came, and it was a 5-club project. So that money came, and we have that fund, and we're operating the Memory Cafe from that. When John Miller passed away, they asked for a memorial to be sent to the Cary Rotary Club for the Memory Cafe. So we have a special fund that our treasurer is keeping, our club treasurer is keeping, and with the first part of that fund, we purchased 2 of these signs that you see over here. That and it shows that it's Rotary, but it's also a joint project with the town of Cary. That's the town, and sponsored by the club. They can get information and reservations to come to it, and down at the bottom, honoring John Miller, Rotary Club of Cary. So we purchased that with the funds, and we'll be using those at the senior center where we have Memory Cafe once a month. So right now the website isn't up. So, but the flyers all have my name on it too. So I take the reservations, and we have to order specifically the food that we serve. So we want a pretty accurate count. So we're asking people if they're coming to bring a reservation. But the last time we only had 1 couple. We had two couples cancel out at the last moment for different reasons. So there's plenty of room. We've had up to 30 or 40 at a time. We have lots of volunteers. There's 2 members from each one of the 5 clubs that are on the board. Ron Stanton is the other board member here. So we're continuing on going. We're hoping COVID will go away, but now we have these signs.
Thank you, Jim. A very appropriate remembrance of John in honor of him. And I just want to thank you and Ron, as well as everyone else involved in the Memory Cafe, for your active support. Can't be easy times to try to be putting this together. So I appreciate your diligence around that on behalf of the club. Before we begin our program, can I ask Travis Wright Colopy to join me at the podium? Sorry to blindside you, Travis, but a few weeks ago, Marie Howard, the district governor that is our Rotary Foundation chair, recognized you and a new level of Paul Harris Fellow Support. So I just wanted to give you the opportunity to be publicly recognized for earning your Paul Harris +5 level pin. And thank you. That Paul Harris +5 pin is unique because there's no more room for stones on that pin. You'll have to start a new collection as you get to Paul Harris +6, Travis, and get the, I think what somebody here knows what the next color is. It's ruby, I think, the ruby's next, isn't it? So we'll all look forward to reaching that ruby level. Any miracle moments to share today before we get started? Nothing here, anything online? I'll do a quick check here. Anyone have a miracle moment they'd like to recognize? All right. In that case, can I ask Paul Sossman to come and introduce our speaker for today? Paul.
Pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Elizabeth Caran, and she's the owner of Outlander Travel LLC based in downtown Cary. You might remember Elizabeth because she was a member of our club a few years ago. And she was also a manager at the Western Regional Library in Apex. I believe. Oh, again, in Cary. Okay. Elizabeth was born in New York, but she actually grew up in Greensboro, where she attended Gilbert High School. And she was an active member in Greensboro's thriving theatrical community there. She realized that she probably didn't want to be in theater, so she attended UNC and got her degree in BA in secondary education, English education, sorry. After student teaching, like me, I went through the same type of thing. I wanted to be a teacher at one time, and then I started student teaching and realized, wait a minute, do I really want to do this? And you probably went through the same thing. So after that, she got her master's degree at UNC Greensboro in library sciences. But after a while, she really enjoyed library work, but she realized it really wasn't her calling, and she'd like to do something she'd always thought about from the age of 8 years old, and that was get into the travel business. So she started Outlander Travel LLC, and her company now is approaching its 10-year anniversary. So I've invited Elizabeth here today to talk about the travel industry, and as we all know, it's changed a little bit from a few years ago. So please welcome Elizabeth Cary.
Well, thank you for having me. I know that you just had a speaker from RDU recently, so he probably gave you some of the same information. You're probably going to know some of it. But I thought first I would start by saying that I'll probably talk about a few things that may induce anger or frustration because COVID is what it is. I'm very Vulcan about these things. It is what it is. I am sorry if it makes you angry or upset. It does me too. It has changed my life over the last 2 years. But I apologize if I say something that you are in disagreement with. I'm just going to tell you how it is. So just to give you an idea about how I work and how my job sort of works, and many of you, I hope most of you use travel agents. I won't put you on the spot and ask you. If you don't, I know a really good one. But I do think that many people are now understanding how beneficial it can be to work with a travel agent. We sort of moved from using travel agents only to, oh goody, I can do this myself because I have to Google, to, oh gosh, doing it myself is kind of a pain. And the last couple of years have really proven that. But the way that I work, it's very similar. The easiest comparison I can make is to realty. I make money from the seller, from their benefits, and I usually cost nothing to the buyer. Sometimes I do charge fees, and other agents, especially after the last 2 years, charge fees. And that's because we don't get paid any commission unless the trip actually happens. And of course, we're working in advance. So all of the work I did in 2019 was really meant to pay me in 2020. So I essentially, that's another year that I worked for no no compensation. And I won't say no compensation. The cruise lines were very good to travel agents in general, and a lot of them paid us for cruises that canceled, even though they didn't make any money on those. So shout outs to the industry as a whole for coming together for something like that. But just to give you an idea of how this sort of went, 2019 was considered a stellar year in travel. My agency, which consists of about 12 agents, including myself, made about $387,000 in revenue. We sold about $4.3 million in travel. We did 1 million of that in the months of January and February. The first quarter of the year is our busy season. So again, 2019, $387,000 worth of revenue. In 2020, we made $133,000 worth of revenue. And most of that was because Royal Caribbean and Alma Waterways and Norwegian paid us on cruises that didn't happen. We sold 1.15 million in 2020, which sounds amazing. We sold 1 million in January and February. So for the rest of the year, we sold, yeah. So it was devastating. Everything stopped. And I will say that in late 2019, I said, man, if the phone would just stop ringing for 2 weeks, I could get so much done. So my bad. Sorry about that. The good news is in 2021, our revenue was up to 224,000. So it just about doubled over 2020. And our sales last year as an agency, 5.7 million. We haven't been paid on all that yet. A lot of it is for this year and next year, but that's really encouraging. We had a better year last year than we did in 2019. And a lot of that actually has to do with what's happened over the last 2 years. So I was asked to sort of speak about what's going on in travel. And a lot of this you probably know. But the major changes are there's a lot more restrictions. And so what I tell my clients is you're very likely going to be able to go there, but it's going to be a pain to get there and to get back. That's really where the headache of travel always has been. It's just worse now. So as long as you're sort of prepared for that, and that's a large part of what I do now. I spend the weeks coming up to somebody's trip, and my team does, making sure they know what the requirements are. I had somebody call me last week and say, you know, I'm going on this river cruise in May, and I need to know right now what that's going to be like. I don't know what's going to be like tomorrow. So, and if the last 2 years have taught me anything, May is like light years away in travel terms. But in general, what we expect as an industry is that vaccines will be required for most travel through the end of the year. There are exceptions to that here and there, but in general, if you want to travel, you need to be vaccinated. Europe is extremely tight about this. I've experienced it firsthand. I did finally get to go to Europe last November. I did a river cruise on the Danube, started in Hungary and went to Germany. And while we were sitting, having our soccer tour in Vienna, we found out that they were closing Vienna. So it was literally like when you were a kid at the mall and you would stay in the store too long and they'd start pulling the gate down and they'd be like, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. And as we left Vienna, the gate came down and nobody else could. People were trying to check into their hotels and being told, no, the hotel's closing, you can't stay here, and having to leave. And that was as late as November. It was definitely a sudden change due to Omicron, something that we didn't know was going to happen. And of course, the reaction to Omicron and all of these variants is very strong because we don't know. And so now, as we move forward, and again, travel agent, not a doctor, as we move forward, Omicron has proven to be really contagious, but not that bad as compared to some of the other variants, especially for folks who are vaccinated. So we're starting to see things open back up again. And like just a few days after I came back from Europe, one of my team members went to Paris. So it's still possible to travel. The thing that you have to know is, do you need your vaccination proof with you? In Europe, everything is electronic. So when you land in Paris, you go to a pharmacy with your US CDC vaccination card, and you get an electronic pass that's a QR code. It makes things a lot easier, actually. And as someone who has used the electronic pass in Europe, and then also who has gone out to eat in New York City several times, you know, having to pull out the card and the ID and everything all at once is it's a lot more difficult. You have to have it with you. If you forget, you can't come in. And I've been in lines for restaurants where people find that out and get really angry and storm off. But you know, it's no shirt, no shoes, no CDC card, no service. So that's a key thing to know. The other changes are things that are even more annoying, I think, because we're used to things being so easy. see. And I hope that you remember back before 2020, when you get on a plane and you wouldn't even think about how amazing it was that you were in a metal tube in the sky going, you know, to Europe in 7 hours. All you were doing was complaining because you couldn't sleep on the plane, right? Because it was so uncomfortable. And now I know personally, when I get on a plane, I appreciate every single second of it. But the problem is COVID is wreaking havoc on employment everywhere and on staff everywhere. So you get to the airport and find out your flight is canceled. The airline changes have been enormous and almost impossible to keep up with, and make me very grateful every day that I do not specialize in air travel. It is a very, great specialty to have because it's so complicated, but it's also a little bit difficult because it's so complicated. So I do help my clients through it, but there's really, in many cases, not much to do. We saw the airlines do a very interesting thing where they said, we're going to waive all change fees, which is so great. We're going to waive all change fees. That's amazing because change fees used to be like $200. But then American Airlines has changed their ticket contract to say, we're not going to protect you on any other airline. So if we cancel your flight, it's as if you were on Spirit or Frontier or any of those other airlines that don't, you know, but that's American Airlines, and they will not protect you on your flight. And there's only so much I can do. I can't fly a plane. I don't own a plane. So those sorts of struggles are real, and it makes travel insurance all the more important. And that's a huge change I've seen. I went from that person who bothered you to buy travel insurance because you think it's ridiculous to you calling me and saying, whatever you do, make sure you quote travel protection in this trip. It has changed people's minds about travel protection in general. And that's interesting considering there is a clause in most of these insurance policies that says we don't cover pandemics. We don't cover them. And that was a shock to a lot of people in early 2020 when they found out that there is an exclusion, even for cancel any time for the coronavirus, for any pandemic. The insurance companies have found ways to make that travel protection valuable in a time like this. You cannot, just like you could never cancel because you're afraid that the nightclub you're going to in Spain might get bombed by terrorists, you can't cancel because you're afraid of COVID. However, if you get COVID, then you're covered. And that takes care of the other thing that has really changed, which is in order to get back to the US, and we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of this, January 26th of last year, the US started requiring that you have to test before you come back into the country. And if you test positive, you got to stay where you are. And that has discouraged a lot of people from international travel. So one of the biggest trends we've seen is domestic travel. And I cannot tell you how many people say, well, we think we're going to go to Florida this year. Okay, that's great, but I hope you're planning it for about 10 months from now, because if you want to go next week, it ain't happening. Florida is sold out, and they have been. They're charging ridiculous prices as well. So that's the final sort of piece of the biggest change that I've seen is pricing. Everybody thinks, oh, well, everything's going to go on sale because, you know, cruise lines couldn't operate for 2 years, so they need the money. They're also sailing at half capacity in a lot of cases, and they've been giving people 125% future cruise credit toward their trips. So prices are higher and higher. Walt Disney World, Disney, you can always count on to raise their prices no matter what's going on in the world. They've eliminated their dining plan. And so now your package will include hotel and tickets, and it costs the same as it did when it included all of your food as well, sometimes more. So that's the other thing. People come to me thinking, oh, I'm going to find something on sale. I mean, it might be on sale, but the original price now is so much higher. But that said, travelers have changed a lot too. The first thing we saw, and this started last year and accounted for a lot of that 5.7 million in sales that we did, is what we call revenge travel. I've been locked in my house for 2 years and I need to go somewhere, and I don't care where it is, but I don't want to touch anybody because people are dirty and carry germs. And so I want a suite, and I want a butler, and I want to be left alone. And so all of that upselling that you know I would struggle to do before is just, that's what I want. That is absolutely what I want. I'm also dealing with people with that extra future travel credit where the cruise is canceled and said, if you don't take a refund, if you let us hold your money, we'll give you 25% more when you're ready to rebook. And they would rebook, and then that would cancel, and they would rebook, and that would cancel. And it was an investment. I mean, people were playing it like the stock market. And so people are now in the highest level suite, and they only paid for, you know, an ocean view category stateroom originally. So we're seeing a lot of that. And then they're traveling in bubbles. So I book a lot of large families. That's one of my favorite things to do. Family reunions or extended families where grandma is taking all the kids to Disney World or on a cruise or whatever. Those are my favorites. People are doing that now all the time. They're traveling with their friends. They're the people that they know, that they breathe around all the time. They're wanting to travel in those little bubbles. So we're seeing that a lot. And then the other thing, which I mentioned before, is they're using travel agents. We've seen a real increase, and travel agents were already pretty popular, which is sort of a best kept secret because people still come up to me and say, I didn't know you existed. I thought that it was just the internet. And you know, Travelocity is a travel agency. That's what they are. It's just an online travel agency. It's mostly computers. But travel is one of the most important investments you make. And so that personal relationship becomes important. And especially when you have spent 8 hours on hold trying to get your money back, it becomes much more appealing to let me do that. And I spend a lot of time on hold getting money back from my clients or making changes for my clients or doing things like that. So we're seeing a big jump in business. If you're wondering if it's possible to travel, it is. In 2020, I went to Mexico, I went to Miami, and I went to Walt Disney World twice. You'll notice that was pretty close to home. Mexico, by the way, they don't care if you're vaccinated, they don't care if you take a test, they don't care who you are, just come on. So if you want someplace that's easy to get to, Mexico is it. You still have to test to come home though. In 2021, I went to Mexico. I did 5 cruises, Royal Caribbean, Norwegian to Alaska, Celebrity, Royal Caribbean again, and Virgin Voyages, which is a brand new cruise line. Went to New York City 3 times. I do have, my sister lives there. Went to Aruba, went to Walt Disney World. I went 3 times during COVID over that time period. I went to Universal Orlando, and then I did the Danube and went to 5 countries on that cruise. So it is absolutely possible to do. By the way, didn't get COVID at all, except maybe when I was in New York City over Christmas. I tested negative, but I had symptoms. So, and my brother-in-law tested positive. So the most dangerous place I went, apparently New York City, which everybody knows. I actually saw the Music Man, and then it closed down 3 days later because of COVID. So it was that is still happening. So I would say that as you're planning your travel, you can go, you can travel, need to be vaccinated probably, and you need to be ready for changes to happen because they will. If you book a flight today for 6 months from now, it's not going to leave at the same time. I can almost guarantee you it's not going to leave at the time you booked it for. So if you're booking for schedule, don't count on it. It's still going to change a lot. They just don't have the staff. And then some flights are so low that they're revenue shifting so that they can stay afloat, so to speak, stay in the air, if you will. So that's what I prepared. I talked a little fast there. Hopefully I'm ahead of schedule, right on time. So if anybody has any questions, I am happy to answer them.
The current, I've got a family member going to Aruba next month. What are the current requirements for that kind of trip?
So I have to look it up to be sure, but I believe Aruba is now you have to test in order to go. You show the test when you get there. And then they clear you. If you can't show a negative test, if you didn't take a test, then they'll test you there, and then you have to quarantine until you get the results. And if they're negative, then you're stuck there for, Aruba's not a bad place to be stuck. And that is something that we're seeing, is that because everybody's learned to work remotely, a lot of people are like, sure, I'll go. If I get stuck, I have my laptop with me and I'll just work. It's still boring and kind of, not the best way, but you can do it.
I heard you went a few cruises. What's going to be the future of the cruise industry? They've got massive ships.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think there's a lot of negative press about that. So I want to say, first of all, cruising has always had this reputation for being a petri dish of disease, right? The big thing before was the rotavirus, the norovirus, right? That you're going to get sick to your stomach. I have sailed at least 40 times and I've never gotten sick. And I've even eaten dinner with someone who's gotten sick. They got sick, I didn't get sick. If you're clean, you wash your hands, you don't lick each other's faces, you don't share your food, then generally, you can avoid it. And the numbers show, like CLIA, which is the International Advocacy Organization for the cruise line industry, that you are more likely to get the norovirus in a college dorm than you are on a cruise ship. And I think everybody can see exactly why. So as long as you are a clean human being, then, in general, you might get sick. You could get sick anywhere, right? You might get sick on a plane, you might get sick anywhere. So there's numbers now, and I actually brought them with me because I think this is really important. The difference between, and this is from ASTA, which is the travel, the travel industry's advocacy group. The difference between enjoying a cruise vacation and visiting your grocery store or restaurant is the extraordinarily stringent anti-COVID measures put in place. These measures include testing, vaccination, sanitation, and other science-backed measures. So to get on a cruise ship now, you have to test. In order to get off the ship, sometimes you have to test depending on where you've been. If you're stopping in lots of places that require testing, you're testing along the way. They are sanitizing all the time, and they always have because of that reputation. Frankly, a cruise ship is way safer for you than my house. Like, don't come to my house, go on a cruise. It's way cleaner. If the average cruise ship were a US state, it would be the safest in the country right now. Royal Caribbean, since it started in June of 2021, sailing again, has carried more than 1.1 million guests with 1,745 people testing positive, which is a rate of 0.02%. In the United States, the lowest positivity rate right now is in Alaska at 9.4. So really, I mean, if you don't want to cruise, don't cruise. Cruising is not for everybody. And cruising has always been love it or hate it. There's not like, cruising, that's okay. Nobody is like that. They either love it or hate it. If you love cruising, it is absolutely a great way to go right now. A lot of cruise lines are 100% vaccinated. Norwegian is saying, we're not going to take kids if they're not vaccinated. So when I sailed on Norwegian to Alaska, it was all adults because that's all that could be vaccinated. I think 15 and up could be vaccinated. Now that, it's a little bit younger, they're allowing that, but you have to be vaccinated. They're 100% vaccinated, crew and guests. Royal Caribbean and Disney have lower percentages. They're about 95% vaccinated because they are kid brands. Like Disney's not going to say no kids. They're never going to do that. So, yeah.
You mentioned Mexico, just go, they're not worried about anything. Now my question is, in the United States, we've got places open, closed down, everything else. If Mexico is open, has anybody done a statistical study to see based on population, whether they've had more people die down there than we have with all the phenomena that we've had going on here?
So that's an interesting question, and it's a little political. I can tell you that.
About the politics.
No, but I
just want to know statistics. I'm interested in science, not what somebody wants me to believe.
But you have to count on the reporting, right? So Mexico is telling you that they have a very low death rate, that the government is, because they want you to come. But my friends in Mexico say it's not like that. One of my team members, her husband is Mexican and has a lot of family still in Mexico, and a lot of, so we don't have good numbers.
So we can't get any real.
We don't have good numbers, no. Okay. We don't have good numbers. I will say that, one of my colleagues went to Mexico, I think 18 times in 2020. That's his specialty, is all inclusives. He still hasn't had COVID. So the resorts themselves are very clean and they're gated. So if you're going to an all-inclusive resort, you're not leaving. It's very much like a cruise ship atmosphere. They're sanitizing. They're keeping it really clean.
One of the things about Mexico, the crime rate had gone up. Has that stabilized or gone down any traveling to Mexico? It's still a risk to a certain degree, and there have been a couple of incidents recently that you may have heard about where drug cartels pulled up in boats and started shooting on the beach. But they are usually targeted to other drug situations. So the general rule, and this is true in Jamaica as well, is if you're going to go out and look for drugs, you might die. I think that's kind of true here too. So I would say right now, there's places in Cancun I'm less likely to suggest that you go, but there are other places that remain, pretty good condition. Reports and stuff like that, so you can pass that on to your clients.
Yeah, I follow the news really, but and obviously the travel industry, when something like that happens, lights up it's like, oh gosh, what are we gonna do? And then we have to get information. So there have been some safety concerns in Mexico, but again, there's safety concerns, that's always been my thing about, if I go to here, I might get shot. I'm like, if I go to the grocery store, I might get shot. So to me, it's just about being safe in general.
One more question?
Yeah, it's more of a comment. The biggest thing that we found when we were traveling was you have to make sure you understand the windows for the PCR test, because every country's windows are different. Some are 72 hours and some are 36, which means you have to get tested or come up with whatever your test result is, and then travel and get inside that window of 36 hours, which is very difficult to do if you're going anywhere that's not, within the United States.
And it could change while you're in the air.
Yeah.
Puerto Rico just recently changed. And we had a period of time where Amsterdam was literally day by day, did you need to test, even if you were going just through Schiphol, which a lot of people do. Do you need to pass Amsterdam's rules or just your final destination?
Even at the airport, the different people who are helping you check your baggage have different answers. So if one tells you no, go to another.
For sure.
We really did that, and then one was fine, we had everything just fine, and the other one was, no, you have to get this done. And so you have to box that.
It is very complicated, trust me, and job security for me, absolutely.
Elizabeth, thank you very much for
Thank
coming to see us again.
Thank you, it's
And
my
for your
pleasure.
presentation. You know this gentleman, Cary Miller.
Thank you.
And so we'd like to have some of his note cards for you to use as you're sending people their refunds.
Wonderful, thank you, I appreciate that.
Elizabeth?
Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you for sharing all that information. I especially appreciate your Vulcan perspective and carrying that through. And I think it's also great to have heard from you right after we heard from Mike Langus at the airport. Because he talked at a very macro level, and you were really helpful at helping us understand what it means to us as travelers. Hang on, Mary. Go ahead, Mary.
Okay, I hope there's not an echo. I wanted to give a shout out to Elizabeth.
Go.
No? Okay. I wanted to give a shout out to Elizabeth. We used her when we went to Hamburg for the international convention, Rotary's International Convention. We've used her for all of our travel. And we ran into some difficulty. And Elizabeth was able to, actually fraud, and Elizabeth was able to work through that so that we did not lose our money. And it was just a great experience. So I do believe heavily in working with agents, travel agents. And one other question, Elizabeth, Art wanted to know if you've booked anybody to Antarctica, or is he still the only one?
So good to see you. Yes, my sister just went on our honeymoon. So that's my
Wait,
second one. Yep. just saw
Who
me.
went there? Thanks.
All right, thank you, Elizabeth. Thanks for your support of Rotary. Yes, Bruce.
Before she opened her travel agency, many years ago, probably 20 years ago now, my wife and I had a convention on the Big Island of Hawaii. And then we were supposed to fly to another island. Well, they flew us to another island. It just wasn't the right one. We arrived at 11 o'clock at night, and I called my travel agent who was in Raleigh. And he said, if you'll run real quick, I'll get you on another plane. So I'd just like to back up what she says about planes. But first of all, he really screwed up. I think there's 6 islands you can land on. But he got us on the wrong island, and our hotel was on another island. So when we got on the last plane, and since we only had a one-way ticket, if you don't think we didn't go through security, it was almost, you had to undress to get on. Why are you flying? Because it was in the height of when all the bombings and things were going on.
Let's see kayak do that, right, Elizabeth? Thank you. Some unsolicited testimonials for Elizabeth personally and travel agents in general. Professionals are worth the cost, in my opinion. As we close, Mr. Tim Duffy is celebrating a birthday tomorrow, Tim. So happy birthday to Tim. You share a birthday with my mom, so that's a special day. And Robert E. Lee. Not that there's necessarily any connection between you and my mom. or Robert E. Lee in my mind, but. Next week, we've got a program, Bruce Howells helping us with the program. Lauren Libby is the president of Trans World Radio. She'll be joining us.
No,
I'm sorry. Lauren is a he, my mistake. That'll help me when I call Lauren and plan for the meeting. Is there anything else I've done today? There's a list. Next week, we'll be eating chicken and broccoli Alfredo over pasta. Our program in 2 weeks, say it with me, chili dinner. It's our virtual chili dinner in 2 weeks. So we'll all look forward to that. In closing, I want to thank you, Elizabeth, very much for joining us. A great program, great insights. Ted and Kim, I want to thank you for joining us. David, thanks for inviting. Ben, on behalf of all of our Glen Air members, thank you for joining us here. And I will say that I really appreciate John, David, everyone that it brings a guest to help expose people to our Rotary experience and the service that we do in the community. If you are so inclined, if you have somebody in mind, next Thursday, January 27th, the district is hosting 3 online sessions, one at 7:30, one at noon, one at 5 o'clock, that will be focused on what's Rotary all about and how do we serve the community. About a 20-minute presentation that we can connect people to what it is that we do in a very low effort, low obstacle way. So if you have questions or you have an interest, see me or Harold, look on our Facebook page. We've also been promoting it there. So please take advantage of that. So that's enough. Tim, can I ask you to lead us out on the 4-way test?
Think, say, or do. First,
Is it the truth?
second,
Is it fair to all concerned?
third,
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
fourth.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned? We're adjourned. Thank you.